Hey everyone, Ariel Adams here with aBlogtoWatch. Today I'm going to ask the question, is the Mauron Musy NODE worthy of the price? The NODE is the newest watch family from Swiss crafted, not just Swiss made, but Swiss crafted watch brand Mauron Musy that I've reviewed multiple times in the past. The NODE is noteworthy for two main reasons. First, it's a smaller size. It uses the same special no-ring engineered case that's normally 44 millimeters wide on the older Mauron Musy watches and has shrunken it down to 41 millimeters. And the NODE also introduces their new quote-unquote in-house movement. This is the caliber MM03. It's an automatic movement that is exclusive to them, and it's produced by suppliers in the area around Switzerland. Swiss crafted is important to the company, and it's placed at the 6 o'clock position on the dial because it's a designator of just how Swiss made this watch is. The actual amount that a Swiss made watch needs to be Swiss is not very high. It's a whole other discussion, and some of you know it. I'm not going to get into it because it's actually not that clear cut. But Swiss crafted is something that I actually think Mauron Musy and maybe a couple of other brands created a number of years ago, and is a designator that this is an entirely Swiss made item, which means that all the parts and assembly happened inside of Switzerland. So that's what Swiss crafted mean, in case you are curious or thinking, oh, that just sounds pretentious. No, there's a specific reason that they wanted to separate themselves from the much looser standard, which is Swiss made. Now, this watch is significantly more expensive than previous Mauron Musy watches. Now, one of the reasons is because the movement had to be completely engineered by them and completely finished by them. Most of the other Mauron Musy watches take a base Le Joux movement and then make a lot of modifications to it. Apparently that costs less, but indeed the in-house made, so to say, MM03 movement has a price premium associated with it. Then you also have the matter of the titanium bracelet. My understanding is that Mauron Musy is coming out with a strap selection, leather and rubber straps, and maybe some other materials, I don't know, for the NODE watch, which would, again, reduce the price because this titanium bracelet, which is not made entirely by them, but it's finished, which means it's polished and decorated entirely by them in-house, requires an enormous amount of time and effort. So let's put the watch on and see what the 41 millimeter wide NODE case looks like. Now, to be specific, it's NODE capitalized with like a little 0 degree symbol. So I'm not going to say the NODE degree, but technically, that is the way that Mauron Musy is positioning the watch. It's not just the NODE, it is the NODE degree. This is the blue dial version, which is the reference MU09 NODE. Mauron Musy has decided to debut the NODE in 3 dial colors. This blue, there's like a lighter silvery gray, and then maybe a darker gray. More colors are coming. But one of the things that's important to note about the NODE and other Mauron Musy watches is that the entire case concept more or less requires it to be made in titanium. And they finish titanium about as good as titanium can be finished. It is nicely polished, it feels great, but this case specifically has a special architecture. And you can see the sort of lugs here. Those aren't just decorative. Yes, they're nice, but they're not just decorative. And what's special about the no-ring technology is that this watch case is water resistant to 200 meters without the need for gaskets, O-rings, or anything like that. What it's doing is it's pushing together these pieces of titanium so closely with such tight tolerances that it's just naturally water resistant to 200 meters. Why don't you want gaskets? Why are those problematic? Well, there's a lot of opinions on the matter, but I think it really has to do with the romance of longevity. Without having gaskets and O-rings or anything like that, you don't have to service those in the future. You don't have to worry that 5, 10, 15, 20 years in the future from now, your watch is no longer water resistant. And I can tell you from personal experience that water resistant watches, as deep as 1,000 meters of resistance, will fog up in a swimming pool if the gaskets and O-rings go bad, and that can happen after just a few years. So the idea of having a watch which is water resistant to such depth without O-rings or the need for servicing is actually really awesome, and to my knowledge, no one other than Mauron Musy offers that. I'm looking at the case back here, and you can see that there's this little plate turning. That's actually connected to the Micro-Rotor. So this automatic winding MM03 movement features a Micro-Rotor. This particular Caseback decoration, which they call the neural net, is just one particular way of decorating it. My understanding is that they will use this as an artistic palette for future places to do decoration, the dial as well. I want to look at the face of the watch, and what you're looking at is actually kind of interesting because it allows you to more or less understand how the movement works. So if I move the watch a little bit here, you can see this wheel turning. That's moving with the automatic winding system. You have the subsidiary seconds here. You have the mainspring barrel here. You have the oscillator right here in this attractive decoration, a nice bridge. There's just a lot of really pretty things going on the dial, but none of it is merely cosmetic. Everything here is functional. Everything here is a working part and has a story behind it related to how this timepiece functions. So this is really an awesome timepiece. I mean, even here you can see the ball bearings. That's what this little thing is right here next to this other wheel, which the Micro-Rotor is mounted on. So everything you see is functional. Nothing here is just to have a shiny thing or a wheel or a shape or anything like that. You could, of course, make a closed dial version of this. It doesn't have to be open. You could orientate the subsidiary seconds in different ways. Maybe even the MM03 is a module that they plan on having further complications on top of later on. Does the Node create a vastly better watch than the other Mauron Musy timepieces, the ones that are larger or have a movement that's based on Le Jeu Perret? I'm not sure the answer to that is yes. I think it's a different product. They've never offered a bracelet before. This is a handsome watch. It looks really, really nice. But I think it's very easy to say as criticism that yes, there are other nice watches in titanium on the market. Many of them are much, much less. The fact that it's in-house movement is pleasant, but hardly, a deal breaker for a lot of people. And this watch costs a lot of money. So Mauron Musy is never going to be an inexpensive brand. But when someone approaches something like the Node, they're going to ask themselves, okay, what else can I get for that price? How does it compare to the other products that Mauron Musy has? And it's an open question right now how the community will respond to the value proposition. As I said, in the future, there'll be a less expensive version of the Node because you will have one without a bracelet. Though I have to say, it would take something away on the bracelet. It's very, very nice. I am very interested to see how the community will respond to the pricing of the Mauron Musy Node, especially given the fact that it has that fantastic no-ring gasketless case construction, this beautiful bracelet, and a nice in-house movement that doesn't offer, I guess you could say, special performance advantages compared to everything else on the market. For full tech specs, details, movement performance, and all that, I encourage you to see the full written review of the Mauron Musy Node MU09 103 on the aBlogtoWatch.com website. For now, I want to hear what your opinions are. The retail price for the Mauron Musy Node, as seen, is $64,900. How do you feel about how that price compares to this timepiece? Let me know, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.